prophecies of Daniel that are yet to happen, that haven't happened yet. What if everything you thought you knew about the end times was wrong? 4 events that will change the world forever? Predictions given over 2,500 years ago that are waiting to unfold, possibly in our lifetime. Could we be living in the last days without even realizing it? Daniel was given visions of the future, visions so shocking, so precise, that they predicted the rise and fall of empires before they even existed. And now, the final events he described are about to happen. Are you ready? In this video, we're going to reveal 3 prophecies from Daniel that are yet to be fulfilled. By the time we're done, you'll never look at the world the same way again. Number 1. The fulfillment of the 70 weeks prophecy. Daniel, a young Hebrew captive, was taken from Jerusalem when the mighty empire of Babylon conquered his homeland. But Daniel wasn't just any prisoner. He had a gift. And this gift may hold the key to unlocking the most terrifying truth about where we are today. A gift so powerful that it not only saved his life, but it may save ours too. A gift to interpret dreams and to see the future. Daniel 9 speaks of 70 prophetic weeks, a timeline of world events leading to the Messiah and the end times. But what if this timeline didn't just predict Jesus' coming, but also the exact moment of the final judgment? If that's true, then we're heading toward a countdown that can't be ignored. Could Daniel's 70 weeks prophecy hold the key to the exact timeline of the end? This is a prophecy so precise that it predicted the very year Jesus would come. And it also tells us what happens next. And trust me, you are going to want to hear this. Because as we break this prophecy down, a terrifying pattern starts to emerge. In Daniel chapter 9, verse 24 to 27, the angel Gabriel delivers a mind-blowing timeline of history. He tells Daniel that 70 weeks have been determined for God's people. But these aren't normal weeks. They are prophetic weeks, where each week represents 7 years. That means 70 weeks equals 490 years. 490 years, covering the rise of Israel, the coming of the Messiah, and the end of time as we know it. This prophecy was given over 500 years before Jesus was even born. And yet, it predicted his arrival to the exact year. Now, let's break it down piece by piece. And when we do, a terrifying pattern will start to emerge. One that may already be unfolding before our eyes. Daniel's prophecy is divided into 3 parts. The first 7 weeks, 49 years, the rebuilding of Jerusalem after the exile. The next 62 weeks, 434 years, the time leading up to the arrival of the Messiah. The final week, 7 years, the period that triggers the end of the world. And here's where things get really intense, because we are currently living in the gap between week 69 and week 70, and the last 7 years could begin at any moment. What if I told you that signs of these last 7 years are already appearing? We'll look at those signs, and they may be happening faster than anyone expected. The prophecy began in 457 BC, when the Persian king Artaxerxes gave the command to rebuild Jerusalem. From that point, the prophecy predicted 483 years until the arrival of the Messiah. And guess what? If you take 457 BC and count forward 483 years, you land at 27 AD, the exact time when Jesus began his ministry. That means Daniel's prophecy wasn't just close, it was perfect. But then, something happened. Why did the prophecy suddenly stop? And what does that mean for us today? After Jesus was crucified and rose again, something unexpected happened. The prophetic clock paused. For the last 2,000 years, we've been in a mysterious gap known as the Church Age. But make no mistake, the final week is still coming. And when it does, it will trigger the most terrifying period in human history. You might think you know what's coming, but the details will leave you stunned. The final 7 years, Daniel's 70th week, is the period we call the tribulation. And it starts with one major event, and that's just the beginning. We still have 2 more world-changing prophecies to cover, and each one gets more shocking than the last. Number 2, the rise of the final world empire. Over 2,500 years ago, a king had a dream. He saw a mysterious statue, made of different metals, each one representing a world empire. And at the bottom, a final empire. Are we standing at the feet of Nebuchadnezzar's statue, right before it collapses? And the 4th kingdom shall be strong as iron, and as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. This prophecy wasn't just about the past, it was about the future. Our future. And today, I need you to hear this, because what comes next will change the way you see world events forever. By the time the world recognizes the final empire, it might already be too late. What if the world is already under the control of this final empire, but we just don't see it yet? Could we already be living under the shadow of the final world empire without realizing it? We might be standing on the edge of the last empire in history. One night, King Nebuchadnezzar had a terrifying dream. Could this dream be more than history, but a warning for our future? Keep watching, because what Daniel saw next is even more shocking. Nebuchadnezzar was terrified of this dream. But what if the real nightmare is yet to come? This is chapter 2 of Daniel, one of the longest chapters in the Bible. The whole chapter is about a scary nightmare, a terrifying dream that shook a mighty king to his core. This king wasn't just any ruler. He was the most powerful leader the world had ever seen up to that time. But even he was trembling in his bed, unable to sleep. He woke up sweating, his heart racing. Somehow he knew this dream wasn't just an ordinary one. It came from beyond. It had a big meaning for his future, full of tragedy and horror. But the problem was, he couldn't understand it. Worse, he probably couldn't even remember it clearly. This chapter shows us a pattern of world history. Someone once called it the ABC of biblical prophecy. If you understand this dream and what it means, you'll hold a key to understanding the entire course of history. It's possibly the most important dream anyone ever had in the Bible when it comes to history. Even with all our science, knowledge, and education, there are still questions we just can't answer. One of the biggest questions is about the future. How will it all end? People often ask, what's this world coming to? Whether on the bus or at work, we wonder. But the truth is, only God knows. And the speed at which things are happening now is alarming. The question isn't just where the world is headed, but how fast we're getting there. And in this chapter, he revealed part of that future through a dream, a nightmare, to King Nebuchadnezzar. This dream of Nebuchadnezzar's wasn't just from his imagination. As I have mentioned, It had a supernatural origin. It came from God. But it also had a natural origin. It was connected to what the king had been thinking about before he went to sleep. You know how, when you go to bed with something on your mind, you might dream about it. That's what happened to Nebuchadnezzar. Now, as you look at the statue from top to bottom, you'll notice some changes. One thing that increases as you go down is hardness. The materials get harder, from gold to silver to copper to iron, and then to iron mixed with clay. But three important things decrease as you move down the statue. First, value goes down. Gold is the most valuable, but the materials become less precious as you go lower. Second, weight goes down. Gold is the heaviest, and the other materials get lighter. Third, brilliance goes down. The shine gets dimmer as you move from the top to the bottom of the statue. I want you to notice something important. The feet of the statue are the weakest part. They are brittle and can break easily. Finally, we get to the toes of the statue in Daniel's vision. Those toes are a mix of iron and clay, which represents trying to combine power with popularity. The Bible tells us that the clay is the seed of men. So today, we live in a strange mix of democracy and dictatorship. Governments are unstable, constantly being overthrown. History is like water running downhill. We're not going up. We're not getting better. We're not evolving. We're falling fast. Governments are falling fast too. But praise God. Right now, Christians are saying two different things, and I'll share them with you for what they're worth. Some people think the iron in the statue's feet means there will be a revived Roman Empire in Western Europe. They look at the European Union and feel it's a warning sign for our times. They believe Europe might become like those feet, and that Christ will one day crush them. But we must remember, this is just a human idea, and we need to leave it there until God makes things clearer. There's another idea to think about. When Rome fell, it first fell in the west, but the eastern part lasted 1,000 years after Christ. Who came next after Rome in the areas where God's plans take place, like Babylon and Jerusalem? The answer is, the Muslims took over. The Arab world rose to power. When you think about this, a new thought comes up. Could it be that the Arabs, who are descended from Abraham, might bring the final challenge to the God of Israel? Is it possible that 10 Arab nations might unite against God's people, and by doing so, stand against God? Could there be a group of countries joined together, some ruled by dictators like iron, and others ruled by democracies like clay, forming a federation to gain world power? And in just a few moments, you'll see how past events are aligning perfectly with what Daniel predicted about the final empire. Because history has a way of repeating itself in ways we least expect. What if we've been looking in the wrong direction, while the real threat is rising elsewhere? If this is the prophecy unfolding, then we are closer to the end than we ever imagined. Could this be the case? Again, this is just human opinion. Honestly, I can't decide between these ideas, or if there's a third possibility we haven't thought of yet. What is clear is that we are not yet at the feet of this statue in Daniel's vision. When the time comes, we will know for sure, because everything will perfectly match what God's Word says. Right now, I don't see all the predictions coming true yet, but I do believe things are unfolding before our eyes, and we will see God's plans and the fall of human pride happen in real time. And when you see what happens next in Daniel's vision, everything will make sense. History isn't just random or by chance. It's moving toward God's plan. Number 2, the arrival of the little horn. This is not just history. This is prophecy, and it's happening right before our eyes. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them. He shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High. Who is this little horn? What does Daniel's vision mean? And are we about to witness the rise of the most dangerous world leader in history? Because what you're about to hear next changes everything. Why did Daniel tremble at what he saw? And why should we be just as afraid? Daniel saw something that would shake him to his core. 4 beasts rising from the sea. The first, a lion with eagle's wings, Babylon. The second, a bear with 3 ribs in its mouth, Medo-Persia. The third, a 4-headed leopard with wings, Greece. The fourth, a terrifying iron-toothed beast unlike any other, Rome. But the most shocking part? It wasn't just the beasts that terrified Daniel. It was what came next. A little horn rising from the last beast. What if the most dangerous ruler in history is already among us? The next part of Daniel's vision reveals something even darker. Could the little horn be alive today, preparing to take power? Daniel saw that this beast had 10 horns, 10 kings ruling over an empire. But then, something strange happened. A little horn began to grow. It wasn't just another king. It was different. It had eyes like a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Daniel sighed him. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. This wasn't just a political leader. This was someone with a supernatural level of power, and the pieces are falling into place faster than anyone expected. What if we told you that the system for his rule is already being built? He would overthrow 3 kings, take control, and then he would blaspheme against God himself. The Bible tells us that before the little horn appears, 10 kings will rise. But who are they? And could we be watching this prophecy unfold right now? The 10 horns are 10 kings who shall arise from this kingdom. The deeper we go, the clearer the picture becomes. What if the 10 kings have already taken their positions, and we just haven't recognized them yet? What if these rulers are already setting the stage, but we don't see it yet? Could the 10 kings who rise before the little horn already be in power? 10 kings ruling before the rise of the little horn. For centuries, scholars and Bible experts have debated what this means. Some say it's a new world empire. Others say it's already forming right now. And the more you look at what's happening, the more undeniable it becomes. World leaders are making alliances right now. But for what purpose? Could we be witnessing the foundation of the 10-king alliance today? Many Bible scholars believe that the 10 kings will come from a revived Roman Empire. Some believe that it is the European Union. Today, the EU is a coalition of nations working together under a single system. And in 1999, they even formed a common currency, the euro. Many believe that one day the European Union could become a 10-nation superstate. And from there, the little horn will rise. But some believe the 10 kings won't just come from Europe. Instead, they will be 10 global superpowers, a coalition of nations ruling over the entire world. Right now, powerful alliances are shaping global policies, including the United Nations, 193 nations working together, the G20, the world's biggest economies, the World Economic Forum, billionaires shaping world policies, Could these be laying the foundation for the final world empire? Another theory suggests that instead of 10 kings ruling separate nations, the world will be divided into 10 regions, each controlled by a powerful leader. Because what follows next is not just political, it's supernatural. Why does Daniel's prophecy mention 10 kings, but only one who takes control? In fact, some global organizations have already suggested dividing the world into economic zones. If this happens, it could create the exact 10-king structure Daniel prophesied. And from these 10, the little horn will rise. But here's where it gets really interesting. Daniel tells us that when the little horn appears, he will overthrow 3 of the 10 kings. What does this mean? History has shown us that the worst leaders rise in times of global chaos. What if the next major world crisis is the spark that allows the little horn to seize power? A political coup? A sudden takeover of world leadership? The greatest trick evil ever pulled was making the world believe it wasn't real. Could we be looking for the wrong kind of leader while the real one moves unnoticed? A military conflict? 3 nations falling to a new ruler? An economic collapse? A crisis leading to new leadership? Some changes happen gradually. Others happen in an instant. Which one are we living through? Because what's happening isn't just theory. It's unfolding in real time. Could we be watching this shift happen right now? History tells us that great shifts in power often happen overnight. Is the world being prepared for a sudden takeover of power? He will take absolute control, but at a terrible cost. He shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and they shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. A time is coming when every person will have to choose, and the wrong choice could cost everything. Sooner or later, everyone will have to make a decision. What if this event forces people to choose God or the system? Blaspheme against God, persecute believers worldwide, rule for a set period before judgment falls. Daniel says something very specific here. The little horn will not only rule, he will change times and laws. But what does that mean? Some scholars believe this could mean the manipulation of time itself. Could this leader alter the calendar to fit his agenda? Could we see a global shift in how we measure time? Think about it. Throughout history, world rulers have already changed calendars. Julius Caesar introduced the Julian calendar. Pope Gregory XIII established the Gregorian calendar, which we use today. The French Revolution led to an entirely new system of time that later failed. What if the past itself is being rewritten to prepare the world for what's coming next? Because history has been rewritten before, and it can happen again. Could this leader try to reset history once again? Other scholars believe this means changing morality itself. We are already watching this unfold before our eyes. Laws about marriage and life are being rewritten. We've already seen the world redefine truth. But what happens when it redefines morality itself? And when you see what's already happening, you'll realize we're closer than ever. Could this prophecy mean that the little horn will create an entirely new moral system, one that contradicts God's laws? For centuries, world leaders have pushed for a unified global system. And in recent years, this movement has accelerated. Imagine a world where one digital currency controls all financial transactions. One government system dictates every nation's laws. One central authority monitors what you can and cannot say. And once it begins, there may be no stopping it. Daniel's prophecy warns us. The little horn will bring this system into reality and shall wear out the saints of the Most High. This is perhaps the most terrifying part of Daniel's vision. The little horn won't just rule. He will persecute believers. He will wear out the saints. This won't just be a war of laws. It will be a war on faith itself. The next part of Daniel's vision reveals just how high that price will be. And those who stand against the system, they will pay a heavy price. The clues in Daniel's vision point to something even more disturbing. Now, here's the big question. Who is the little horn? There are many theories. A future world leader we haven't seen yet. A powerful political or financial figure. And if it's someone already rising, what happens next? Could it be someone already in power? Or is this figure yet to be revealed? In the past, many historical figures were thought to fit the prophecy, such as Napoleon Bonaparte, a ruler who overthrew governments and nearly conquered the world. Joseph Stalin, a leader who ruled with absolute control and sought to remove faith from society. But here's the problem. While these leaders caused devastation, they didn't fulfill all of Daniel's prophecies. The little horn isn't just a tyrant. He is a ruler who will emerge from a 10-nation alliance, overthrow 3 kings, and set the stage for a final world empire. Number 3. The covenant with many. Daniel 9:27. The prophecy hidden in Daniel 7. There is a prophecy so specific, so chilling, that when it happens, it will confirm we have entered the final countdown. It is known as the covenant with many. A 7-year agreement that will shake the world. What if the next peace agreement isn't a political deal, but a spiritual deception? An agreement that may already be in the making. And according to Daniel 9 verse 27, it will mark the beginning of the end. Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, but in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. This is not just any treaty. It will be the agreement that will change the course of history. History has shown that some of the most dangerous deals looked like peace at first, because the most dangerous lies are the ones wrapped in peace. Could the final world empire be built through a treaty that seems harmless at first? What if a single agreement sets off a chain reaction that no one can stop? But what is this covenant? And who is the he that will confirm it? Many have speculated who will be involved in this historic covenant. What if peace isn't the goal, but the trap? Could this prophecy explain why the world is so desperate for peace in the Middle East? Could it be Israel and its neighboring nations? A global peace agreement? A treaty to rebuild the Jewish temple? The Bible simply says it will be a covenant with many. And today, we are closer than ever to seeing this come to life. Why does Israel matter so much in prophecy? Because everything revolves around it. The Bible calls Israel the apple of God's eye, Zechariah 2:8. And in the end times, Israel will be at the center of global events. Right now, there is an urgent desire for peace in the Middle East. The world is desperate for a solution. And when the right leader comes along, they will offer it. We are seeing alliances form. The push for a new global system is everywhere. The world is being prepared for this covenant. The stage is being set. The question is, who will step forward? What if a single peace treaty is the only thing standing between us and the tribulation? But here's where it gets terrifying. Daniel 9:27 says, "He shall confirm the covenant." What if the person who will change the course of history is already in power, Who is this he? Many believe it is the Antichrist, a leader who will rise out of the final world empire, a man who will bring peace, but only for a moment. Because after 3.5 years, this covenant of peace will be shattered. This event will lead to a worse prophecy. This is Daniel's prophecy of the abomination of desolation. And today, we're closer than ever to watching it unfold. Because once this final event takes place, the countdown truly begins. But here's where things get chilling. Daniel saw visions of the future that were so accurate. History unfolded exactly as he described. And then, Jesus himself, the Son of God, referred back to Daniel's prophecy. Jesus instructed us to remain watchful and prayerful. But what should we watch out for? We cannot just stand idle and gaze at the clouds, waiting for him to appear. That's not what he meant. Instead, he meant that we should keep track of the happenings in the world and recognize the signs that he provided to help us prepare. Signals are the signs. In Matthew chapter 24, the disciples asked Jesus about the signs of his return. They wanted to know what to do if they didn't know when it would happen. Jesus gave a direct and clear answer, which we can be grateful for. In the book of Revelation, he provides a more detailed response, but in this chapter, he gave a brief summary of the signs that would precede his arrival. The disciples came to Jesus secretly, while he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, and Jesus spoke about the abomination of desolation. What is this abomination, and when can we expect this? Matthew 24, verse 15. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. And forces shall be mustered by him, and they shall defile the sanctuary fortress. Then they shall take away the daily sacrifices, and place there the abomination of desolation. The abomination of desolation is an event where a powerful leader enters the temple. Because when deception is at its peak, truth will be the most dangerous thing. What if the world's most sacred site is about to become the center of its greatest deception? Because history has shown us that power and worship always go hand in hand. Could the Antichrist soon demand worship in the most sacred place on earth? He stops the daily sacrifices. Something is placed in the temple to desecrate it. Now, history records one event that partially fulfilled this. But what's coming next? It will be far worse. In 167 BC, a ruler named Antiochus IV Epiphanes did something unthinkable. He invaded Jerusalem, marched into the Jewish temple, and set up an idol of Zeus. And to make it worse, he sacrificed a pig, an unclean animal, right on the holy altar of God. For the Jews, this was the ultimate blasphemy. But why does this matter today? Prophecy doesn't always unfold slowly. Sometimes the world changes in a single night. Because some of the greatest turning points in history happened in a single moment. Could we wake up one morning and find out the prophecy has been fulfilled overnight? And what happens next will fulfill what has been prophesied for thousands of years. Jesus told us that another abomination of desolation is still coming, one that will happen in the last days. And this time, it won't just be about idols or temples. It will be about global control. 2 Thessalonians 2 verse 4. He will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. But what happens when that waiting finally ends? The Jewish people have been waiting for thousands of years to rebuild their temple. Right now, in Jerusalem, Organizations are actively preparing for it. The temple's furniture is ready. The priests are trained. If the temple is rebuilt, the countdown begins, and there will be no turning back. Could the Jewish temple be rebuilt in our lifetime, setting the stage for the final event? All that's missing? The right moment to build. This is the moment that changes everything. And when that happens, the final countdown begins. Once this happens, there's no going back. And this event will kick off the next prophecy. If this prophecy unfolds in our lifetime, then we are living in the final chapter of history. And what follows will be unlike anything the world has ever seen. The question isn't if it will happen, but how soon. If the abomination of desolation is near, that means time is almost up. The sealed book in Daniel. What secrets are yet to be revealed? Imagine discovering a book so powerful, so mysterious, that even the prophet who wrote it was told to seal it up. A book filled with secrets, meant only for a future generation. That's exactly what happened in the book of Daniel chapter 12, verse 4. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. A sealed book, hidden knowledge, a divine message locked away for thousands of years. What could be inside? And more importantly, could it be opening right now? What if Daniel's book was sealed because the world wasn't ready for the truth? The Bible is a history book, but it is unlike any other history book available in any public library. The history of the Bible starts with the creation of the earth and ends with the end of the world. No other history book has ever been published that covers such a broad range of events on planet Earth. Partially because no one was present at the start to witness and document it. And therefore, no one can write the beginning of our world authoritatively. The Bible is a book full of predictions. Its pages contain 735 predictions about the future. A prediction can be found in 1/4 of the Bible's chapters. From beginning to end, it is basically a prophetic text, though some books focus more on predictions than others. 596 of the 735 predictions have indeed occurred and have literally come true according to the scripture prediction. So, 81% of all Bible prophecies have already come true, and some of those prophecies were made centuries before the case. It doesn't take much confidence to believe that the remaining 19% will happen as well. That's a very high score. But what about the 19% that remains? Could the final events be happening right now? In Daniel 10, he describes seeing a heavenly being. Many believe this was none other than the pre-incarnate Christ, or possibly the angel Gabriel, sent to deliver an urgent message. And what he was about to say would change Daniel's life forever. We have reached a chapter that is different from all the other prophecies in the Bible. God is so wise that he knows how much of the future we can handle, how much to tell us, and how much to keep secret. I thank him that he has kept so much of the future hidden. If he had told us everything, I don't think we could handle it. But what he has shown us is important and is exactly what we need to know. Let me remind you that prophecy is a miracle. The Bible itself is a miracle. Only God has the power to write history before it happens. That's why some people don't believe it's possible. If you don't believe in God, and if you don't believe in a God of miracles, then you won't believe that the future can be told in such detail. Since God can know and reveal the future, how can a man learn it from God? How could a man like Daniel write about things that had not happened yet? Daniel felt the same way many of us do today. You look at the world, you read the newspaper, you watch the news on TV, and you wonder, what on earth is going on? Where is this all leading? It seems like the world is out of control. What is God doing? And where is He? Daniel was determined to get an answer from God. And now we know that the very first day he prayed, God heard him. God sent an angel with the answer. But there was a battle in the spiritual world. A good angel was bringing the answer to Daniel, but a bad angel tried to stop him. The forces that fought against Daniel's revelation are still fighting today. 3 weeks after Daniel started praying, the angel arrived to tell him the future. We see that. At that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation. The angel Michael is known for fighting spiritual battles. As the archangel, he is seen as the true enemy of Satan. It is important to understand that Satan is not the opposite of Jesus. Instead, he fights against Michael, who is a high-ranking angel. Besides being a warrior, Michael has a special job of protecting Israel. God chose Michael to be the spiritual guardian of this nation. The Bible talks about a time of great trouble. This means there will be suffering for Israel and a terrible time for the whole world. This is called the Great Tribulation. It is also known as the time of Jacob's trouble, just as it says in Jeremiah 30. What is the time of trouble that is coming? And could it be closer than we think? But then, the angel does something unexpected. Instead of explaining the vision fully, he tells Daniel to seal up the prophecy. But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Daniel 12, verse 4. Why? Why would God hide this prophecy until the time of the end? Now, there are some important instructions. Daniel is told, the words are closed up and sealed until the time of the end. It wasn't time for people to fully understand this prophecy yet. This is amazing. Many parts of the Bible weren't written just for the people of that time. They were written for us, so we could read them and be encouraged. Some parts of the Bible come alive in certain situations. Could we be the generation this was written for? It's an exciting thought, isn't it? Daniel was told to seal up the words, but a seal doesn't stay closed forever. It also means that this prophecy is complete and must not be changed. No one should add to it or take away from it. Sadly, there are some Bibles that have tampered with the book of Daniel. They've added extra chapters that don't belong. Did you know that? Some Bibles have a Daniel chapter 13, but it's not real. If you ever see a Bible with a Daniel 13, you have the wrong Bible. The Jerusalem Bible has it. Some versions of the New English Bible have it. The Common Bible of the Revised Standard Version includes it too. But I tell you, that extra chapter is not part of the true Word of God. If you're interested in those books, buy them separately. But don't get a Bible with them added in. Daniel's prophecy was important in his own time. But one day, at the time of the end, his prophecy would matter even more. That is why it was important to shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. In the book of Daniel, we are given a picture of what the time of the end will look like. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Some people believe this means that in the last days, people will travel all over the world, run to and fro, and that information will grow quickly. Knowledge shall increase. The idea is that people will search everywhere for answers to important questions, especially about what will happen in the future. Daniel has already told us enough so that his book can be sealed. From Daniel 11 to Daniel 12, we learn about a world ruler who will fight against God, a world religion that is built on the abomination of desolation, a world war that will bring down the ruler, a time of great trouble for Israel that will last 3.5 years. God's people will be saved after the time of trouble. There will be a resurrection and judgment. The righteous will be rewarded. So Daniel closed the book, and the angels were confused too. Remember, there were 3 of them in chapter 10. Here they are again, one in the middle, standing above the river, and one on each side. They didn't understand everything, and they started asking questions. Then I, Daniel, looked, and there before me stood 2 others, one on this bank of the river, and one on the opposite bank. 6. One of them said to the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, "How long will it be before these astonishing things are fulfilled?" The man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, lifted his right hand and his left hand toward heaven, and I heard him swear by him who lives forever, saying, "It will be for a time, times and half a time. When the power of the holy people has been finally broken, all these things will be completed." The angel told another angel in Daniel that these things would happen over 3.5 years. A time, times, and half a time. This 3.5 year period is mentioned in many other Bible prophecies. 1 Peter 1:21 says, "Even the angels long to look into these prophecies and decide what they are all meaning." That means even the angels study God's prophecies, just like we do. One angel asked, "How long will this last? How long will Daniel's people suffer? How much longer must they go through this?" Daniel 7 says, "This is when God's people will be under the Antichrist's power." Could the Antichrist already be among us? Keep watching, because in just a few moments, everything will come together. Daniel 9 says, "This is the time between the Antichrist breaking his promise with Israel, setting up the evil thing in the temple, and when Jesus comes to rule." Daniel 12 verse 7 calls this the time of trouble for Israel. Revelation 11 verse 2 says this is when unbelievers will take over God's holy city. Revelation 11 verse 3 says this is when God's 2 witnesses will preach. Revelation 12 verse 6 and 14 say this is when God will keep Israel safe in the wilderness. When we put all of these together, we see this is the second half of Daniel's 70th week, also known as the Great Tribulation. But we don't know much about the first half. Did you know that the Bible tells us 6 different times that this period of trouble will last 3.5 years? That's 42 months, or 1,260 days. God couldn't have made it clearer. Jesus himself said that if God didn't shorten that time, nobody would survive. But God has set a limit, just 3.5 years. The people of Israel may seem completely crushed as these events conclude, but at that time, the Messiah, in whom they will place their trust before his return, will come back to rescue them. At this point, Daniel had a question. He wanted to understand more. He didn't quite get what the 3.5 years meant. What was going to happen? What would it all lead to? But the angel told Daniel, "That's all you need to know." Daniel didn't understand everything either, even though he heard it himself. He said, "What shall be the end of these things?" Maybe Daniel asked this because he was worried. He knew how awful the time of trouble would be. The angel did give 2 little hints. First, 1,290 days after the trouble starts, then 1,335 days. What will happen in the 1,290 days and 1,335 days mentioned at the end of Daniel? What's about to happen next is so important. It could change everything. That means after the 3.5 years, something will happen in another month. Then, after that, something else in another month and a half. And he said, "Go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. Many shall be purified, made white and refined, but the wicked shall do wickedly. And none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand." The command to go your way simply means to go, but it doesn't mean to walk away. The angel told Daniel to stop worrying and questioning. More answers would come later, but for now, Daniel needed to trust what God had already shown him. Daniel needed to stop questioning because the full meaning of these things would not be known till the time of the end. Until then, these prophecies would remain closed up and sealed. That doesn't mean these words had no lesson, no blessing, or no purpose for people before the time of the end. But when that time comes, these prophecies will make more sense. Today, there is great interest in prophecy, and in the last 150 years, people have gained an amazing understanding of what the Bible says about the future. This should show us that we truly are in the time of the end, the kingdom that will last forever. After all the chaos, after all the wars, after the rise and fall of kingdoms, there is one final prophecy, the most beautiful promise ever given. If Jesus is coming back, what should we be doing right now to prepare? A kingdom is coming, a kingdom that will never fall. A kingdom ruled not by men, not by corrupt leaders, but by God Himself. In Daniel 2:44, we are given this prophecy. "And in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever." Did you catch that? A kingdom that will never be destroyed. It will break apart every earthly empire and replace them with something eternal. For thousands of years, men have ruled the earth, and every single one of their kingdoms has fallen. Babylon, gone. Persia, gone. Greece, gone. Rome, gone. Even today's superpowers. Why? Because every kingdom built by men is temporary, but the kingdom of God is forever. So, what will this kingdom be like? First, it will be ruled by Jesus Christ Himself. Revelation 11 verse 15 says, "The kingdoms of this world have become the kingdoms of our Lord and of His Christ, and He shall reign forever and ever." Second, it will be a kingdom of perfect peace. No more wars, no more suffering, no more corruption. Third, it will be a kingdom where God lives with His people. Revelation 21 verse 3 tells us, "Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and He will dwell with them, and they shall be His people. God Himself will be with them and be their God." Let that sink in. God Himself will live among us. No more distance, no more mystery. We will see His face. But here's the best part. In Revelation 21:4 it says, "And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away." Can you imagine a world like that? This isn't just a dream, it's a promise. A world where there's no more disease, no more hospitals, no more cemeteries. A world where you will never have to say goodbye to a loved one again. This isn't just a dream. It's a promise. But here's the question. Who will be in this kingdom? Who gets to enter? In John 3 verse 3, Jesus said, "Most assuredly, I say to you, unless one is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. The kingdom isn't just for good people. It isn't for those who try their best or do a few nice things. It's for those who have been born again through Jesus Christ. At the end of time, every person will face two choices. Will you be part of God's kingdom, or will you be left behind? To enter God's kingdom, or to stay in the kingdoms of this world, which will all be destroyed. Which side will you choose? Christ's own words also make it clear that he will return. His earthly teaching was filled with references to his second coming. Many of his parables spoke of it. In fact, the Gospels include entire chapters dealing with events related to the second coming. For example, Matthew 24 to Matthew 25 and Luke 21. On the night of his betrayal, Christ told the disciples, John 14, "My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am." Not only is the credibility of God at stake in the second coming, but so is the credibility of his Son. If Jesus doesn't return, he's a liar. But his own words are a divine guarantee that he will be back. All of these parables emphasize the certainty of Christ's second coming. That's not everything. Christ constantly stated in the book of Revelation, "Surely I am coming quickly." The Bible presents a picture of what the world will look like as the present age draws to its end through many prophetic passages. Jesus used the example of Noah's time to explain that the world was carrying on with their daily activities like eating, drinking, and getting married. All things continued as normal. That is, until Noah and his family entered the ark, at which time the deluge, cataclysmos, came and destroyed all the people. Pate. Even though life seemed to go on as usual before the flood and the punishment of Sodom and Gomorrah, Jesus said that when he comes back, there will be some sense of normality. Jesus didn't say that everything would be fine or that there wouldn't be any problems. Conditions before the flood and before the judgment of Sodom and Gomorrah were terrible, but the wickedness was accepted as normal and routine. The word translated revealed is apocalyptete, from which we get our modern word apocalypse, but the ancient Greek word has the idea of revealing or unveiling. When Noah's flood came, one could imagine people trying to keep their possessions safe while they themselves perished vainly. Even so, if one is ready for Jesus' coming, they will not be concerned about the material things left behind. The heart's focus shouldn't be on what's in the house, but on what's in heaven. Do we want to be friends with the rest of the world? This world represents everything that is opposed to God, the wickedness that was once a part of your life. Consider the innumerable examples of people who had the opportunity to do the right thing and then lost that opportunity forever. Pharaoh, Nadab and Abihu, Korah and his gang, Judas Iscariot, and so on. In that night, there will be two men in one bed. The one will be taken, and the other will be left. This passage is often applied to the rapture, a term applied to Jesus' coming for his people at a time when the world seems to run in the normal routines of life. And after he said these things, he was caught up as they looked on, and a cloud took him up out of their sight. While they were looking intently into the sky as he was going, two men in white clothing suddenly stood beside them, who said, "Men of Galilee, why do you stand looking into the sky? This same Jesus, who has been taken up from you into heaven, will return in just the same way as you have watched him go into heaven." 2 points stand out in these verses. First, the Jesus who returns to earth the second time is the very same Jesus who lived here on earth with us. and went back to heaven following his resurrection. And second, he will return to earth the same way, in like manner as he went back to heaven. How did Jesus ascend to heaven after his resurrection? Did he go in secret? Number these Taja, the disciples watched him literally rise into the air until a cloud obscured his view. As a result, these verses indicate that Jesus will return to earth in the same manner, not in secret. When the Lord returns, descending from heaven, his appearance, as well as the rising of his people to meet him in the air, will be visible to the entire world, an event known as the rapture. Jesus compares the end times not only with the days of Noah, but also with the days of Lot. We have presented the evil elements that were evident in the days of Noah and Lot. As we have seen, various forms of evil were rampant. However, it would be wrong for me to close this picture of the days of Noah and Lot without also showing the positive side of the picture, because there was a positive side in two main respects. There is a good side to the days of Noah, for Genesis 6:9 says, "These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God." There was one man among all those people who had an intimate, personal relationship with God. God could speak to him and tell him how he viewed the situation and the judgment he was going to bring. For us, as believers, Noah sets a pattern that we must follow. Noah and his family were the only survivors of that tragedy. It seems clear to me that only those who live like Noah and his family will survive today. Hebrews 11 has just one verse about Noah. By faith Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by the which he condemned the world, and became heir of the righteousness, which is by faith. He will tell us what is yet to come, not necessarily all that is yet to come, but all that we need to know in order to survive and fulfill God's purpose. Although there is much that is evil and frightening in the picture of the days of Noah and Lot, and much also that agrees with the evil and frightening aspects of our time, we must also look at the positive side. We need to see that there is never a situation for which God does not have an answer prepared in advance. God will give his servants supernatural warning of what is to come. He also sends angels to help, to protect, and to deliver. We can expect these good things from God in our day. One of these days, the world will be judged. Are you safe in the ark? The same door that shut those on the outside out is the door that shut those on the inside in. The same waters that destroyed the world were the waters that lifted up the ark.
Many seem to be confused because they do not understand the book of Revelation. However, what if there was an animation showing the entire book? Well, we created that. And to watch that, click here.